Hello, everyone, and welcome to the online Commonwealth Games Masterclass presented by the Sports Excellence Scholarship Fund and the MCC Foundation. My name is Nick Mooney, and we thank you very much for your company from wherever you may be tuning in from right around Australia. We're broadcasting today from the home of sport, the MCG. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as the traditional owners on whose country we are situated, as we also do the traditional owners of the lands where you are joining us from. We recognise and respect the cultural heritage of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people and pay our respect to their elders past, present and emerging. Today we're gathering for the third episode of our online mentoring series presented by the SESF and the MCC Foundation. In term one, we covered swimming, the tips and tricks that matter to you most. In term two, we had a cross-country masterclass, and today we embark on our Commonwealth Games masterclass, behind the scenes insights and preparation tips for your next big event. From a housekeeping perspective, I'll ask all you to keep yourselves on mute unless asking a question, just so we can hear everyone nice and clearly. Today is a great session, an interactive session. So if you do have a question, post it in the chat function, and we'll try and get to that question during the hour. We'll also cover many of the questions that you asked during the registration process, and there was plenty of those. Our panel of presenters today includes Ali Cole, OAM, Mack Horton, OAM, Matt Harnipal, OAM, Anne-Marie Harrison, Lauren Scherff, Beck Henderson, Emily Whitehead, and Ashley Brennan. Today is all about engaging, learning, and hearing from some incredible athletes. First off, we have Ali Cole and Mack Horton from the world of swimming. Welcome to you both. Ali and Mack's CVs read as good as any swimmer could wish for. Ali is Australia's most successful female Paralympian of all time and has recently hung up her goggles after a stellar career. Mack is an Olympic gold medalist, multiple Commonwealth Games gold medalist, and an SESF ambassador. So welcome to you both, Ali and Mack.
Hey, Nick, thanks for having us.
Thank you. You said Ellie's hung up her bathers, but she's actually racing this weekend. She's not doing retirement very well.
It's like a fun thing, though.
Well, glad to hear that you're still active, Ali, and we'll start with you. So you have recently called time on your amazing 17-year career. After 3 Commonwealth Games, how did Birmingham compare to the other 2?
Birmingham was brilliant. It always is a special experience to swim for Australia, even after 17 years. I've been to 2 Commonwealth Games prior to Birmingham, and I think I'm going to call it. I think I enjoyed Birmingham the most. I only had one event and I was finished on the first day. So for me, it was a really great experience to finish really early. And then the wonderful thing about being in a Commonwealth Games village is that it is a multi-sport event. And so I was able to have an opportunity, which I've never really had before, to just, take a seat. And I kind of sat outside the dining hall and got to know a lot of the other athletes. So I guess competition aside, it was a new experience for me after I finished swimming, a bit more of a social games than I was used to. And I was able to go into the pool every evening and watch the finals, and swimmers like Mack absolutely dominate. Australia swam so well. And I think I had the best seats in the house right on poolside. Well, so it was a lot of fun.
Sounds like a brilliant experience, Ali, and from a smile on your face, you definitely enjoyed it.
I did. I've always really thoroughly enjoyed being an athlete and swimming for Australia. And for me, it was really special. I've just turned 30, and we have a lot of young swimmers who are coming through, really young athletes who are joining our swim team. And these are potentially athletes that are going to be competing for Australia in Brisbane 2032 and at our next home Olympics and Paralympics. So it was really exciting for me.
Oh, fabulous. So through that journey, Ali, what are the changes you've seen and been involved in for Paralympic athletes that you've been most proud of during your career?
The changes have been immeasurable. You think back to when I first joined the team in 2006, I had only known about the Paralympics at that stage for around about 2 years. I grew up racing able-bodied kids alongside Matt Harnipal, who's on the phone call. And I didn't even know about the Paralympics. So to have seen how far it's come, how many kids are now getting involved. There are heaps of pathways now for para athletes that weren't there when I was younger, is really incredible. And one thing that I guess really shows how far we've come is our Jewel in the Pool competition, which is on this weekend. Mack mentioned I was swimming one more race, actually a few more races. But as a world first, we are now introducing a combined Paralympic and able-bodied relay. So there's going to be 2 para athletes and 2 able-bodied athletes within the same relay team. So I never imagined something like that would happen when I was younger. It's really, really special to see and to know that our current para athletes, as well as the athletes that have come before us, have played a huge role in always pushing.
And that dual relay team just really demonstrates how far it has come. Ali, we've got a couple of questions that have been sent in. One from Nadine from St. Aloysius Catholic College. What would you like to be able to tell your younger self that would serve you well during your swimming journey?
That's a great question, and I think very applicable to our audience here. So thank you, Nadine. I think, I've been on the swim team since 2006, so for a really long time, and there are parts that I've really enjoyed and parts that I haven't enjoyed so much. I guess the bits when I haven't been enjoying my swimming career have come from when there's been an incredible amount of pressure to win. I haven't won a swimming race actually since 2016. So for a very long time, and the last 5 years or so, I've probably enjoyed it the most. And that's not saying that you should always lose and then you'll have fun. But I think if I could tell my younger self something, it would be to understand that as an athlete, winning is actually quite rare. I suppose when you're young, you do win more often than not, and that's why you continue your sport. But as you get a bit older and into more elite and competitive competition, winning is very rare at times. And so understanding that you're not going to win all the time, and to be okay with that, and to go back to the drawing board and see what you can do better and learn from that, I think is probably the most important advice I could give.
That's a great answer, Ali. Thank you. Annabelle from NU Swim has asked, Ali, what's your favourite moment of your swimming career?
Probably finishing. No, for me, I would say finishing, only because it was very special for me racing my last ever international swimming event at the Commonwealth Games, because I could actually, for the first time, really sit back and reflect on, like I mentioned before, how far we have come in para swimming. So that's not saying that my favorite moment was finishing. It was to be able to give myself an opportunity to sit back and reflect. I think athletes usually are always looking forward. Very rarely do we look back on what we've actually achieved. It doesn't matter how old you are. I think that's really important to be able to do that. So it was a really nice time for me just to sit and reflect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well answered. And we've got one from James from the Hills Sports High School in New South Wales. It's a bit longer, but bear with me. James is actually asking how to best manage yourself both mentally and physically during your off season. And you can chip in on this one after Ali as well, Mack, if you want to allow your body and mind to relax, recover and recuperate without getting worried or feeling guilty that you're doing nothing. Many of the young high performers still want to train 10 sessions a week, 52 weeks of the year. They're worried that they're being lazy and missing that competitive edge if they rest. So how would you respond to that, Ali?
Well, I've been an athlete for a really long time, so I think I'm well qualified to answer this question. There have been many times where I've had to take a mental break from the sport, just because I suppose when you're a swimmer, or I'm guessing an athlete from another sport, it can be a really high pressure environment, and there are a lot of people involved that want to see you succeed. And so they will put pressure on you to, keep training through your off season, or keep fit during your off season. But at the end of the day, we're all playing the long game. We don't want to be athletes just for 1 or 2 years. We want to really contribute to the Australian sporting landscape for as long as we can. Sometimes taking a big break is the best thing that you can do for yourself. And sure, there are going to be some people that pressure you into not taking a break, but at the end of the day, you're the one that has to come back. You're the one that has to put the hard work in when you do come back. And if you're willing to do that, then just keep telling yourself that you're willing to do that. I took 2 years out after the London Games in 2012 for shoulder recos. I know, I trained alongside Kate and Broncie Campbell. I know that Kate and Broncie both take a whole year off every now and then. They're actually doing that now to be able to enable them to get back in the water. And unfortunately, the reason why we don't see many swimmers competing in their late 20s is because of burnout, and it's because they don't take the breaks when they should. So
it's a great answer. So your message is take a break when your body and or your mind lets you want to do that. Mack, do you want to build on that?
I agree. Take the break. Obviously, when you feel like you need to mentally and physically, but I think also it's important to set aside some time every year to allow for that reset and that guilt-free reset and break. I think the guilt-free break is very hard to have because so often you just want to get back into training, you get restless. But it's important to actually just let go of that for a period of time so that when you do come back, you're still hungry, you're refreshed, and you're resetting and ready to go for the next year. So I think probably another big aspect is planning ahead, and I guess, taking in the big picture, figuring out when you can have these guilt-free breaks so that you can keep pushing for the rest of the season or the rest of the year.
So for everyone out there, we've heard from Ali and Mack to take those guilt-free breaks when you need them. Mack, we'll keep some momentum going with you. This is your third games as well. And how did you find Birmingham compared to the other two?
I loved Birmingham. I always love a multi-sport event and a village event. And I particularly love the Games because the able-bodied team and the para swim team come together. And it's the only event on the calendar where that happens. And to be honest, the able-bodied team's pretty boring. The para swim team's so much more interesting and so much more fun. So it's always great to be able to hang out with them. And just, I guess, the power of that team coming into the village. I think we had 74 athletes and maybe 120 people in total if you include staff. So it's pretty special to be a part of, I guess, an engine or a mechanism that's, that big and moving with so much momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great to hear that you enjoyed that aspect of it. So, Mack, you've recently, or 12, 18 months ago, you might correct me here, 2 years ago, moved to the Gold Coast to train under Michael Boll. What event preparation advice has changed since that move?
I think it was actually only 8 months ago, believe it or not. It's COVID. You lose track of time. I think the biggest thing with Bowley is he likes to keep everything super simple. He always says, it's just swimming, Mack. It's just swimming. Just like keep it really simple. We train, you get in and race. It's no different to what you do every other day. Obviously, in terms of training, it's probably slightly different to what I did in the past in Melbourne. So I think there's been a bit of time adjusting to that and figuring out how to work with that. But in terms of the advice, I think he also understands that I'm an older swimmer now. I'm 26, so I do know how to swim. So he doesn't want to intervene too much. And his job probably is building confidence and pushing me to the limit. So that's probably how it's shifted over the year.
Sounds like it's been a great transition. So we do have a question here, Mack, from Samaya from Wodonga Senior Secondary. How do you feel as a swimmer missing opening and closing ceremonies? And also, how many boxes of Wheat Bix did you take with you?
Excellent question. Missing the opening and closing. We're used to missing the opening. We've never been to an opening as a swim team because swimming always starts day one. As much as we'd love to go, I think everyone loves swimming fast more. And so even if we did have the option, everyone would probably put their performance first and say, no, it's too close to racing. I'm here to swim rather than attend the opening. In pre-COVID times, we did attend the closing, which is always amazing. Seeing the baton pass to the next city and being able to celebrate the week that was, not only for the swim team, but for every other sport. But yeah, unfortunately during COVID and hopefully for not much longer, we weren't able to hang around and do that. And the Wheat Bix, I didn't take any because in a village situation, we actually have like an Australian nutrition hub. And it's basically just a room where they have all breakfast cereals, Vegemite, toast, everything from Australia up and goes, those Carmen's muesli bars. So I don't need to think about it. Someone's already sent a shipping container full of Wheat Bix over. But a couple of people do make fun of me because I think on my first national training camp, Mum made me pack a box of Wheat Bix. So she was worried I wasn't going to get a good breakfast. And someone did remember that, and they still give me a hard time about it.
Pulled it out of the suitcase. So how many Wheat Bix do you actually get through in a session these days?
Not many anymore. I only do 5 before training, and then I'm on the muesli now after training, but I used to do 14 or so after training. And my single sitting record is 33. So try and beat that, everyone.
For all the young people out there, I'm sure they'll be having a go at that tomorrow morning. We've got a question from Danielle from the Swim Talk podcast. She's asked why you've dropped the 1,500 metres from your race program. From memory, you've rarely done the 1,500 metres. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think my last international 1,500 was the 2018 Commonwealth Games, so 4 years ago now. Before that, I did it, quite a bit internationally. It was probably my stronger event until Rio, where I won the 400. I dropped it just because I think I grew a bit physically. As I got a bit older, I got a bit bigger and a bit stronger and a bit heavier. And that it makes it difficult to tolerate the training load required for the 1,500, but then also to get through a 1,500 without it taking weeks out of my year to recover.
Yeah.
And if I want to swim a solid 400, I can't be burning too many bickies in the 15.
Wheat Bix. I think we're sponsored by Wheat Bix, but we're not. Mack, a final
if they
one
are listening, we will take a Wheat Bix sponsorship.
Good call. Mack, a final one from you, unscripted, but today is also about, event preparation. What have you really taken as your goal that you've learned over the years in terms of event preparation? Whether it be mindset type things or sticking to routine, variety of other things. What advice would you give to everyone else around there listening about event preparation that you've picked up over the years?
For me, I think when you get to an Olympics or an international swimming meet, everyone in that final or in that heat has done, probably just about the same amount of work as you have. So I think for me, it's like almost a confidence game. You need to believe that you have trained harder, that you've eliminated all the excuses. And I guess that's kind of, as you go through the year, and get closer to competition, I like to start eliminating those excuses so that when you do get behind the blocks, there's nothing to fall back on. You've done everything that you absolutely can to be the best you can be. And I mean, any athlete will tell you, if you do have those excuses, it's hard to get up and race and believe in yourself. So the easiest way is to do that. But it is also the hardest way. So it's a bit of a catch-22.
Keep doing the hard work. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Mack, thank you. And that's Ali and Mack, you've provided some lovely moments and stories and tips and some beautiful segues into our next presenter, Matt Harnipal. So Matt is our third panel guest. He's the 2012 Paralympic gold medalist in swimming. Matt's also currently the Diversity and Inclusion Strategies Project Officer with the ABC, and he's also an SESF ambassador. Matt is also an elected director at Swimming Victoria and chair of their Diversity and Inclusion Standing Committee. So Matt, today's role is to cast his lens over the inclusion aspect of Birmingham 2022. Welcome to you, Matt.
G'day, Nick. It's really great to be here and to see Mack and Ellie and the whole team again. It's great to see everyone after a long 2 years of COVID.
Absolutely. And I will say for everyone listening that I've known Matt for about 10 years, and he's been a real champion for young athletes coming through and school sport. And, I've really appreciated that over the years, Matt. You've put a lot of time and effort into helping people along the way where you can. So, Matt, while the Paralympics are the pinnacle elite sporting competition for athletes with a disability, the Commonwealth Games, as Mack said, are the only multi-sport event with an integrated parasport program. How did you see that play out in Birmingham?
Yeah, and I think that it was great to see the Commonwealth Games, particularly in the UK, take another step. And that was, with the Paralympics being so successful in London in 2012, really great to see that success. But with the Commonwealth Games, it's grown since 2002 in terms of the para events. There's been elite athletes with disabilities all the way back since Manchester, and then the paraplegic games back in the 60s and 70s. So the Commonwealth Games and the para sport inclusion has really been a very long story. But particularly for Birmingham, we've now seen a team come together, as what Mack and Ellie have been saying, is that it's full inclusion, the acceptance between the two teams, and the belief that they can come together for joint success to achieve a common goal is really, really fantastic. And look, I was part of the ABC sport team, and to hear the stories coming through from Birmingham was just wonderful. The stories and the coverage to ensure proper inclusion is happening. We're really, really pleased with how the team went over and gave us some really good stories to tell over for the ABC.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was great to have you involved there. So what event preparation advice have you learned over your career that you could pass on to emerging para athletes?
I'm going to go somewhere different than probably you would traditionally go, and it's the idea of nutrition and dietetics. I've got a partner who works in this space, and something that's continually drilled into me now is that the importance of fueling yourselves correctly. That protein and is a very important thing, to eat a really balanced lifestyle as well. Always to have the treats in it as well, but to have a balanced lifestyle and eating effectively, ready for training and competition, is really, really important. And that's even so important when you're young, right through to when you're getting into Ellie and Mack's age in their 20s and even into their 30s, is that for longevity, good, healthy eating is really, really important.
And did your eating change during the stages of your career?
Yeah, certainly for me, because with me, muscle building was particularly difficult. So, and that was together with my disability as well. And I have to really ramp up my protein, through all my years, not just when I was younger. So, and also the use of sports health and sports medicine, really, really important. I think that's really, really a great area to be working in. I know that my partner does really works with a lot of athletes, particularly in gymnastics, and the fueling that they need to do is really important too.
Fabulous. Well, Matt, we've got a question from Brody from Collier Primary School. What is the most important piece of advice you can give an 11-year-old taking part in a national swimming competition for the first time?
At 11 years of age, it's really important that you just enjoy it. Love the water, love the idea of racing and being with your mates, particularly in school sport as well. That's what we do here at the foundation. And I think that to really enjoy, being the best in your sport, but also doing the best at school is really, really important. The idea of being, student athletes at 11, 12, 13, 14 up to year 12 is a really good balance. So enjoy being part of competition and swimming at age 11, but get in and try different events as well, because that's, just specializing at the age of 11 and 12 as a swimmer. Some don't specialize until they're 15 and 16, and even Mack, doing the 1500 and changing things up when in 2018 just shows that, the event that you're doing at the start of your career may not be the same at the end.
Thanks, Matt. And one of the great things about the SESF going national this year is that we're engaging with students and schools, sports people from all over Australia. So the next question is really pleasing, from Nicholas from Darwin High School. And your last one, Matt, how did you deal with pressure prior to racing and competing?
Trusting that I've trust the process is a pretty common term at the moment. To really trust that your training has backed you up ready for competition. The more that you are, believing in the way that you've done your training, you'll walk behind those blocks and feeling really confident with what the results will come. The results will look after themselves. And I think once I got into the first day of racing, the second day of racing, the nerves start to really drop away and it just becomes a swim meet. And your performance with that as well tends to improve. Nerves is part of racing, but at the same time, if your performance in your training and everything around that has been perfect, then you've got nothing to worry about and the results will look after itself.
Great answer. Thank you, Matt. Well, we're going to keep the momentum going here. Our next panel guest is Anne-Marie Harrison. Anne-Marie is one of Australia's most respected sporting administrators and a world-recognised expert in high-performance sports management. Anne-Marie is the current CEO of the Victorian Institute of Sport and a former executive director of the Scottish Institute of Sport. Welcome, Anne-Marie.
Hi there, Nick. Great to be part of the dream team and also hopefully plenty of potential VIS athletes on the call.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a stunning view you've got in the backdrop there. We're all very, very jealous. So, Anne-Marie, you're casting your eye over tonight from a sporting administrator's point of view. What were the highlights that you saw in Birmingham?
Well, I think first and foremost, it was great to be back out amongst it at a multi-sport event with crowds and spectacular sport happening. And it was really good to hear both Mack and Ellie's reflections on their positive experience in Birmingham, because I'd certainly say from a spectator point of view, and that's the capacity in which I was there. I was chief cheerleader. A couple of things really came to mind. Firstly, and it has been touched on, is that great integration in Commonwealth Games between para athletes and other able-bodied athletes. It can't happen at the Olympics and Paralympics. They're both too big in their own right. So the Commonwealth Games is a great place for that to happen. The volunteers were amazing. They were friendly. I mean, there's been so much that has been built on that volunteer culture since the Sydney Olympics and Paralympics. And each Games, I think, has felt the pressure and responsibility to carry that through. The Brummies, as the Birmingham people call themselves, they're very proud of their region and their city, and they were determined to show it off to its best and make sure that all the spectators had the very best experience. And they certainly did a great job on that. The crowds were amazing, sell-out venues, whether it was a morning session of heats or a finals session in most events. They were pretty parochial, but then you would expect that if the event was being held in Australia as well. So they're allowed to be parochial. They did seem to be very parochial about every other country that was competing against an Australian athlete, which was a bit uncomfortable from time to time. The small number of Australians that were in the crowd, we were flat out making sure that our noise was being heard above the din of supporting the Jamaicans or the Scottish or New Zealanders. Didn't seem to matter who it was. If they were against an Aussie, then the English supporters were definitely supporting them. I think the event format too, the changing up of a few sports, the introduction of women's cricket, the 3x3 basketball and the wheelchair basketball version of that. So some great new advents to the program. I love the idea of the mixed relay and the duel in the pool coming up this weekend, and the ability to carry that through to some of our other sports on the Commonwealth Games program, I think would be a great initiative. I could go on. The Australian Commonwealth Games Association and the management of the team did such a great job in keeping performance at the focus, but also well-being and safety from a COVID perspective being really important in that regard too. And of course, as is always the case and should be, the stars of the show are the athletes, and they put on a pretty damn good show. I didn't bother about the fact that I was bobbing up and down pretty frequently singing the Australian national anthem. That was something that I was pretty happy to do. But the Australian team, I think, performed not only with great distinction in terms of the medals that we won, but I saw some, as we always do, some outstanding sportsmanship, really some strong community engagement with other Commonwealth countries. And I think that's something that Australian athletes do brilliantly.
They do. And Anne-Marie, that's an absolutely first-class overview of your experience in Birmingham. So Australia loves sport. People are passionate about sport. There's a lot of young athletes and people that love sport who would like a career in sport administration or working in sport. What advice would you give young people looking to have a career in working in sport?
Well, definitely go for it. I'm one of those really fortunate people. Since I left school 1,000 years ago, if Mack and Ellie think they're getting out there now, let me tell you, I've been out there for 1,000 years. But since I left school, I've had an opportunity to work in sport. That's been my career, and I have been so privileged and fortunate and blessed to have such a career. It's a more complicated business now, and certainly, the days of just finding your way into a sport and kind of moving from being a volunteer into a paid position, that's probably no longer possible. So it's important if younger people want to set their career path in this direction, that they think carefully, obviously around their choice of subjects, but also what their path might look like and how they can navigate that path and how they can get some experience whilst they're still young and have some volunteer time available to them. Getting experience working as a volunteer in an event or at a competition or on a board or a local sports club committee. All of those things, I think, are great assets that bring a sense of realism and reality into the role when ultimately you do land a job. So absolutely put your hand up and go for it, because you'll have a fantastic career.
That's great advice, Anne-Marie, and congratulations on your incredible career in sport over a long period of time. Our next panel guest 5 is Lauren Scherff. Lauren is a professional basketballer who made her Commonwealth Games debut in Birmingham in the 3-on-3 basketball. As Anne-Marie said, a brand new sport for the Commonwealth Games. Lauren was the 2015 WNBL Rookie of the Year. She won the WNBL title with the Canberra Capitals in 2019 and won bronze at the FIBA Asia Cup with the Opals in 2021. Lauren currently plays for the Perth Lynx in the WNBL and also coaches at Ivanhoe Grammar School, a very busy person. Welcome, Lauren.
Having me.
So, Lauren, how did you get into the Australian 3-on-3 team, and what has your pathway in the sport been?
So I first started with 3-on-3 when COVID hit. Melbourne was in lockdown. I wasn't doing a whole lot, and a couple of my mates were like, just come down and train at MSAC with the 3-on-3 Aussie girls and the coaches. And I was like, okay, I'll just do it for a bit of fun and fitness. And then it just kind of all started from there. I was just training with them 2-3 times a week during lockdowns. And then I was, didn't think anything of it. I had no idea what 3-on-3 basketball was, didn't know the rules, didn't know anything about it. And the coaches saw my potential in the sport, and just kind of kept me around. And then made, after the WNBL season in the hub, we went, was then selected to be in the Australian squad for 3-on-3. And the next major tournament was the pre-qualifying Olympics for the Olympics. And I made the squad of 5 and ended up being the COVID emergency. So I went all the way over to Austria and watched the girls compete. We unfortunately weren't able to qualify for the Olympics, but just to be a part of the 3-on-3 and the atmosphere of it all was amazing and so epic to be a part of. And then once that was all done, I then went back to my normal training for 5-on-5 with WNBL, and then was selected to be back in the Australian squad for 3-on-3, and was then selected to be a part of the Asia Cup tournament in Singapore, which was at the start of July. And we won silver there, and then was lucky enough to be a part of the Com Games team here in Birmingham.
Well, I hope you've thanked that friend that invited you to come down and just muck around with a 3-on-3 team there. So first Com Games, how was it for you?
I mean, it was surreal. It was probably one of the best experiences of my entire career. I didn't know what to expect, but being at the previous tournaments for 3-on-3, Com Games outweighs all of them. I like just the atmosphere of 3-on-3, just the fans, just the entire atmosphere, and being a part of it all was amazing and just so surreal. Usually when you go to 3-on-3 tournaments, you're just expecting, a bit of fun, not that serious. But yeah, with Com Games, it was just 10 times better. And I was just so thankful to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah, it looked like a huge amount of fun. I watched a lot of 3-on-3 and the atmosphere was absolutely fabulous. We've got a question from Perth, from Ruby, Perth Modern School. How do you manage fueling requirements and high energy output? And also, how do you deal with low periods of motivation for training?
So the first part of the question, I just make sure that I have the right amount of food intake, especially with my protein and carbohydrates. And I also take a lot of protein supplements after gym and weights and conditioning. So I think that, just making sure that I've got the right fuel intake. I also take a lot of hydrolyte during and post games. I also make sure that after every match, I'm doing the right recovery for my body, whether that be icing, to nutrition, to making sure that I can perform at the peak, the best I can be for my next match. And then to the second question, so I just make sure that I'm seeking help from family members and from mentors, to provide outlooks to help regain focus on why I play and why I love the sport.
Yeah, sounds like you've got a good group of support around you when the motivation wanes a little bit, Lauren. So it's really good to have a good support base. Well, congratulations on your bronze medal from Birmingham. It was absolutely incredible to watch. The able-bodied and also the wheelchair 3-on-3 was a real highlight as well, I thought. But congratulations on your bronze medal, and we look forward to seeing more of you on the international stage.
Thank you.
At this point in time, we'll welcome guest 6, Beck Henderson from race walking. Beck is an Australian race walker who made her Olympic debut at the Tokyo Olympics in the 20-kilometre event. She's a great success story from the SESF point of view, being our first scholarship winner and alumni to go to the Olympics. So you've always got that one to hang your hat on, Beck. And recently, Beck competed in the extreme heat at the Eugene World Championships in the USA. A terrific 20th placing in 1 hour 34 minutes. And her place is the equal 6th best by an Australian in this event at the Worlds. Beck then finished a very credible 4th in Birmingham in the 10-kilometre race walk, her best international result to date. And Beck is also an SESF ambassador. So welcome to you, Beck.
Thanks for having me.
And Beck, for people wouldn't know this, but she's just come out of a university lecture that finished at 5:30. So appreciate you coming on, Beck. We've had 2 questions asked in the chat from Annabelle Hughes, Beck, and they probably relate really well to you. So how do you manage your school assessments? This is and swimming, but it relates to sport, full stop, and training, all at the same time with mentally being okay?
That's a really good question. I think the main thing for me with balancing everything is to just have a set kind of plan that I do each week. So I know I drive into the VIS on Mondays and Fridays and Saturdays, and they're the days I go in there and I can fit any study that I need to around that. And then say Thursdays and Wednesdays are the days I go into uni, and I just try and get as much work as I can done in that time frame. So it's just having a consistent schedule each week so that you mentally know that's what I'm doing. And obviously I try and keep the weekends as free as possible because you've got races and there's social things, so many different things. And then if you need to catch up on any study or anything, you can do it during that time, and that gives you just a little bit of extra to make sure you know you can get everything done.
That's great advice, Beck, and I know that you live in a busy house with lots of people running around, and I think it's sisters that I can hear in the background. Annabelle's also asked, what's the best piece of advice from your coach?
I think from my coach, sorry, I'm in the library. That's probably
Oh, you're in the library. Okay. It's supposed to be a quiet place, the library.
Yeah, I think the most important advice from my coach, because race walking is obviously a very technical sport, is just thinking about those kind of technical cues in my brain. And I guess that goes for every sport, same as swimming. If Annabelle's a swimmer, just thinking about those kind of technical cues for each stroke. And especially when you're getting tired in a race, if you're doing a long race, that can really help just mentally take your mind off kind of the pain you're feeling throughout the race and focus it more onto what you can do in the race to help you keep going and improving.
Fabulous. Great answer, Beck. Thank you. And the next question for you, how did the Commonwealth Games experience compare to your Olympic experience in Tokyo?
Yeah, I think the Commonwealth Games and Olympics were very different for us race walkers, mainly because we got to race on the track and in the stadium, which we pretty much never get to do. We get to at nationals, and they normally put it at 9 p.m. at night, and no one's there to watch. So this was a very different experience. Walking out onto the stadium with 30,000 people there was insane, pretty much. It was just so loud and so exciting. I've never seen anyone get that excited for a race walk. So it was just really cool to be in the stadium and just hearing everyone cheering for you. It was, yeah, pretty cool. And I think the other thing that was a bit different was that we got to roam around a lot more, and we were kind of more free to do what we wanted and be in the village. We weren't in the village in Tokyo. We were locked in a hotel room. So it was great to get to interact with athletes from other sports and other countries even, and just see what they were doing and how they were working to maybe get some tips and see what I can improve on for the future.
Sounds like you had an absolutely superb time in Birmingham, Beck. Two more for you. Firstly, Deborah from MSC, what are you studying behind sport, or what are you studying when you're not race walking?
I'm currently studying a Bachelor of Biomedical Science at Monash. So I'm in my third year now. This year I did my first 2 years full time, and this year I've just dropped down to part time for my final year. So it's going pretty well, I think. And then hopefully following that, I'll do medicine or radiography. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm really excited to be able to do sport and study at the same time.
It's like you're in for the long haul there, Beck. And finally for you, what event preparation advice have you learnt recently that you could pass on to emerging athletes?
I think in terms of the major races, you should not get caught up in what everyone else around you is doing. Obviously, there's at the Olympics, at the Com Games, you're around a lot of amazing athletes, but they often do things differently to how you would do it and what works for you, because everyone is different. So I think for young people, just kind of finding something that works for you and sticking to that preparation leading into an event, whether that be you're eating toast beforehand or the warm up you do the day before to get ready for the race, because it's really important to stick with what works for you. And especially at those major races, you don't want to be going to a big race and then changing something and it doesn't work. So I think in the little races throughout the year, maybe changing one thing at a time and seeing if that works, if it doesn't work, but then making sure for your major races, you've got a plan in place ready to go so that you know what you're doing. You've raced 100 times before, and just making sure you know exactly what to do. That's probably the best preparation you could do, is knowing exactly what needs to be done.
Fabulous. Thank you, Beck. That's a great answer. And thanks for being here tonight, and congratulations on your performance in front of 30,000 people on the track in Birmingham. We're moving on to the sport of gymnastics. Guests 7 and 8, Emily Whitehead and Ashley Brennan. Emily at the 2018 Commonwealth Games won a bronze medal in the team event and on the vault, and she represented Australia at the 2020 Summer Olympics as well. And in Birmingham, Emily won a bronze in the vault and a silver in the teams competition. And we've also got Ashley Brennan here, who's a dual Olympian, dual Commonwealth Games gold medalist, 3-time World Championship team member, national champion, and Victorian Female Athlete of the Year. And he's also an SESF ambassador. So Emily and Ash, welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Great to see you both. Emily, I'll go to you first. How was your Commonwealth Games experience this time?
It was definitely different. I think having it over in Birmingham and not in Australia was a different games. It was kind of cool having a crowd again. I think that we've really missed having crowds. I think that having the time zone difference was a little bit difficult, just like contacting home and stuff. But it was special, and I love how different each games can be.
Absolutely. Emily, I've got a question from Evie Atkinson here. I have a, she's asking, how do you make sure you enjoy working towards your goals?
Yeah, that's something I've had to like work on a little bit. I think that the most important thing is just really soaking in each moment. That's something that I haven't done in the past. I've kind of just kept moving forward and not really appreciating each moment. So by taking a step back sometimes and just really soaking it in and appreciating that helps you keep moving forward.
Great answer. Thanks for the question, Evie, and that's a great answer on the run there, Emily. What event preparation advice, Emily, have you learnt over your career that you could pass on to the younger athletes listening tonight?
I think that the best thing that's helped me the most in the lead up to any type of competition is just having like the right support network around me and keeping up the communication between like my coach and myself, and then even my support team. Yeah, I think that's like the key thing.
Having a really good team around you and keeping the communication up sounds like it's worked for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Emily, question from Narelle from Camberwell Hockey Club. What mental tool do you use under pressure, and do you think attitude is a factor in winning?
For me, I like to visualize. I think that that's something that really helps me, especially in the like lead up to competitions. I'll watch videos, I'll just close my eyes and really like visualize each routine. And then for sorry, I missed that last part that you asked.
Yeah, sorry. It's the second part of the question is, do you think attitude is a factor in winning?
Definitely. I think that the more confident you are, the better you're going to perform. So it's important to have that confidence, but I think it's also important to just remain calm and not overthink things.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, Emily, on your performances in Birmingham. They were great to see and some really good results. And you're only young and there's plenty left in your career. So we really appreciate you being here tonight as well. Ash, welcome to you. And similar to Matt, known you for a long time, and you've been a really strong supporter of young athletes wherever you can and given your time willingly. So we really appreciate that and want to acknowledge that tonight. Ash, what caught your eye in the gymnastics events at Birmingham?
Yeah, well, it was so nice I loved watching the gymnastics, obviously, and it was great to see both the women's team and the men's team do such a great job, but especially the girls bringing home a silver medal in the team event. England and Canada are huge competitors of ours, so it was really great to see that the girls are up to that standard and performing really well. And I loved seeing that, you know, Emily and her teammate Georgia were such great leaders to a young team that was joining them at the Games as well. So, yeah, I think one of the best things about the Commonwealth Games and Olympics, but especially the Commonwealth Games, is seeing that Aussie sportsmanship and that camaraderie. And I think that really shined through with our gymnasts as well.
Yes, fabulous. It certainly did. Ash, we've got a question from Greg from the MCC here. What is the best piece of advice for athletes aiming to achieve their best performance?
Yeah, well, I think, as a lot of the athletes have touched on tonight, that mindset is everything. And so, you know, working with a mentor or with someone that can assist you with building your confidence, and even just the way that you talk to yourself, you prep, like how you prepare, your visualization, your positive self-talk, it goes a long way. So I think if you head into an event and you've got that positive mindset and all of those tools in your toolkit that can really help you come competition time, that will really come through and shine when you come out to perform. So I think that's definitely key. And yeah, having that support team around you, as mentioned before as well.
Fabulous. Ash, what event preparation advice have you learned from your career that you could pass on to young athletes?
Yeah, I think as a gymnast, I always wanted to look back on my competitions and think that I hadn't left a stone unturned, and that I'd have no regrets. So giving your absolute all in the lead up to an event. But yeah, you can't do that without your support network around you. So I relied heavily on my family. You know, I was such a young athlete, so I depended on my family to drive me to training and to all of my events as well. Having a good network of friends as well to be there, you know, when things aren't going that well, and to support you when you're doing a great job as well. And I was really lucky to have Anne-Marie and the BIS team along my journey as well, that, you know, I could always go to for any sort of assistance mentally and physically, to help me prepare as best I can. So that support team is everything.
Yeah, fabulous. Really great answer, Ash. Now, we haven't talked too much, Ash, about the Commonwealth Games coming to Victoria, Australia in 2026. You participated in a 2006 home Commonwealth Games in Melbourne. How do you think they'll differ from 2026?
Yeah, well, 20 years difference, that's a bit scary, isn't it? But Melbourne 2006, I think even after my entire career, was the highlight for me. I loved competing in front of a Melbourne crowd. And I think that's what a lot of athletes, you know, heading into Victoria 2026 have to look forward to. And I think that we know that Victoria does sporting events extremely well. So I'm really excited to see, you know, that all come into place. And I think it's also really important to remember that so many of, you know, our amazing athletes come from regional areas. So for regional towns to be able to host those events, it's really exciting for them. And I know that, you know, lots of people are prepared to travel regionally to get behind our Aussie athletes. So I'm really excited to see how that all unfolds.
Absolutely. And I think the gymnastics may be down in Geelong in 2026. So any budding young gymnasts from Victoria might be heading down to Geelong for those games. I'll just open back to you, Mack, Horton. 2026 Victorian Games. What are your thoughts on those?
It's very exciting. Obviously, I'm living on the Gold Coast, but I am still a Victorian at heart, and I will always be a Victorian at heart. You're never taking it away from me. Not sure if I'll be swimming there, to be honest. I'll be 30, so definitely getting on a little bit in the swimming world. But I'm excited to just take it all in, see it take place, and get involved wherever I can.
Well, you might, you know, given the discussion tonight, Mack, you might take a little bit of time off after Paris and come back for Victoria 2026.
Maybe just a 50 freestyle or something. We'll see.
Fabulous. Well, at this point of the night, it's been a fabulous masterclass, and people are probably getting hungry at this point of the night. We do thank you all for being here today. The hour's flown by. We hope you've enjoyed our online masterclass of the Com Games presented by the SESF and the MCC Foundation. At this point, to close the session off, I'd like to hand it over to Bridget Lodge. Bridget's a director from the SESF and puts in a lot of volunteer time to help the charity get to where it is. So welcome to you, Bridget, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Nick, and hopefully this works. We're working beautiful. I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. As Nick said, for the SESF, this is a really important event for us to not only showcase what we do in terms of our mentorship with our students, but also bring to light what the SESF does more broadly across the country. So thank you everyone for joining us today. A big thank you to our panelists. It has been obviously a hectic month for you or most of you, so we're really appreciative and grateful for you for giving up your time. Thank you to the MCC. As Nick mentioned, they're our event partner today, and the SESF wouldn't be here today without the MCC's ongoing support. So we do thank you very much for your ongoing commitment in supporting young athletes' development. Nick, thank you. An amazing job once again. Some brilliant insights that you've got out of all of our panelists today. So I know everyone will be walking away with something that they can either take back to their training or take back to their breakfast table when they enjoy their 15 Weet-Bix tomorrow morning or whatever it was. I know my little son Charlie can barely get down too, so he's got a while to go to meet Mack. So some really great insights there. Couple of final things. We'll obviously be sending around a recording of today's session, so please feel free to share that among your networks. The more people that hear about the SESF and the work that we're doing, the better, so please feel free to share. We are also a national charity this year, and we're incredibly excited to be able to support athletes right across the country. So please continue to share the work of the SESF, reach out to Nick or anyone else on the panel today for more information. And we look forward to bringing you another masterclass in time to come. So thank you once again. And yeah, I hope you all have a lovely night.
Thanks, Bridget. And thanks again to our panelists and for everyone who joined online. Have a great evening. We'll see you again soon.